What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the overall market as we're approaching the end of the year and what the news is saying. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer is very soon, in just about 1 day from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's talk about what's happening with the market. So looking at SPY, as you guys can see, the head and shoulders still remains on SPY, and if anything, we did not see enough buyers step in to help it try to start off with a rebound. Instead, we just started off with the selling right off the gate. So with that being said, the market is still looking quite weaker right now, and the odds do favor the downside. And we're going to likely continue to see this head and shoulders play out. So that's going to be like the more general and the more strong consensus at this point. So I'll be talking more about that. But just know that we need to see SPY reclaim at 592 to turn back up. As long as we can't do that, we're going to be at risk of coming down to about 585 very soon, if not closer to 580 or below. Now, one thing worth mentioning is that for Tesla, what typically happens is there are buyers that step in the week of deliveries. And in this case, we haven't really seen that since Tesla lost 431 from the start. The market's also dragging it down despite the fact that deliveries are coming out and we're getting some nice analyst ratings. So it's still very, very weak alongside the markets. Now, this morning, we're seeing the Dow, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq all essentially selling off. The market is still in a decent place on a year-over-year basis. We're still holding up quite well. However, this could shift a little bit as we approach the end of the year because of tax harvesting for tax reasons, also because of rebalancing and then profit taking and all these different factors. So that's the reason why the market is selling off to end things. There's also a lot of fear about 2025, considering that the Fed is going to likely be cutting rates less than expected, and there could be some economic turmoil that many analysts are talking about. So those factors, and then the new presidency, which leads to a little bit more uncertainty about some policies, is what's leading to this sell-off, some profit taking before the year comes to a close. And it's going to likely be something that continues going into the end of this year. So just keep that in mind. Former President Jimmy Carter passed away at the age of 100, so rest in peace to him. Condolences to him and his family, or his family, excuse me. Besides that, Sundar Pichai from Google has said that we have to gear up for 2025 to be a critical year, as he told employees that the stakes are high and the company is preparing for tougher competition and more regulatory skepticism around the world. So that's what he said, at least thus far. For the economic calendar, just know that today is Monday, December 30th. At 9:45 a.m., we have the Chicago PMI. Then at 10:30 a.m., we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. And 11:30 a.m., we have the 3 and the 6 month bill auctions. So just keep those in mind. We also have the earnings calendar that doesn't really show anything too significantly so far. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, starting off with Tesla, where do I see this going? We're at the 420 support. If that does not hold, we're looking for essentially 414 as the next main level. If that breaks, we're looking for 410 and then all the way down to the lower 400s like 402 if that fails us. If we get bought back up above 431, we could try to bounce, but this is once again making lower highs and it's looking like a little bit more bearish. So we could be looking for a little bit more downside, especially if 420 fails us. For SPY is forming a head and shoulders right over here. We have a left shoulder, we have a head, and then we have a right shoulder. We have this resistance around 592. We have to break that to bounce. If we can't, we're going to likely continue to fall. So if we can't get back above 592, we're favoring 585. And then if that fails us, the 585, if that range of that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down closer to about 580 flat. So please keep that in mind, guys. There's that risk of downside, especially because SPY still has this head and shoulders and looks more bearish to me. For ES, it's the same setup. We have a left shoulder here, a head, and then a right shoulder. We got to reclaim 6,000. Otherwise, we favor more downside. And there's going to be a risk of us coming down to this imbalance at the lower 5,900 area. So with the head and shoulders, just be careful. There is some downside risk. For Nvda, we are forming these peaks as we're getting these rejections. We need to reclaim 136. Otherwise, we are favoring. We'll move all the way down closer to 132, then eventually 130. So I'll be watching that very, very closely. For Bitcoin, we're on a bit of a downtrend. we're going to be watching to see if we could reclaim 94,000. Otherwise, we are favoring a move closer to 90,000 flat. So just be very, very careful. For other factors, we have, I think I already talked about Tesla, but just be careful with it. We also have NQ. NQ is also looking a little bit weaker. We got to try to reclaim 21,565. Otherwise, we favor more downside all the way down to about 21,200. One, by the way, with Nvidia, I forgot to mention, Nvidia has a head and shoulders. I forgot to talk about that. We got to reclaim 137. Otherwise, once again, favors a move all the way down to like 132, then eventually 130. So keep in mind there's weakness on Nvidia too. But going back to NQ, this is also looking weak. Got to reclaim 21,500. Otherwise, it favors to move down to 21,250. QQQ looks more bearish. We got to reclaim 523. Otherwise, we favor 511. So it's looking weaker. We're looking at 515 is the first support. If that fails us, we look for 511. Then the lower 500s. Apple's going to be testing 251.8. It needs to try to get back above 255. Otherwise, it's going to be testing 251.8. If that fails us, 250 is coming for more potential downside. For Palantir, for those who are interested, it's also dipping. We hit my target of 76.9. We got to hold that. Otherwise, we could be dipping lower to about 75. And then if that fails us, we go down to about 72. For the Russell 2000, we got this rejection. We need to reclaim 223. Otherwise, we favor downside. If we can't reclaim that, we're looking for a move back down to 217. For Coinbase, we're on a bit of a downtrend right over here. We need to reclaim 270. Otherwise, this may continue to dip all the way down to 250. So just keep that in mind. For Amazon, we're looking weaker. We need to reclaim 224. If we can't do that, this is going to likely continue to fall all the way down to 220, then 217. So there is going to be that risk of downside. Meta has an inverse cup and handle. We're trying to hold 588, which is close to where this support happens to be. If that fails us, we're looking for 583, and then we could be dumping all the way down to like 576 if that fails. For Microsoft, we have a head and shoulders like structure. We need to reclaim 431. Otherwise, we favor downside all the way down to about 422. So unfortunately, we're on a downtrend for Microsoft. Google has this support at 192. If we can't hold above that, we're going to likely continue to fall to about 188. And if that fails us, we dip down to 186. So there's like a head and shoulders here. I'm seeing a lot of weakness on the chart. For the VIX, we look bullish. We're trying to break out right over here. We could be trying to push up to about the, a much higher levels, especially as there are sellers stepping into the markets. So with the VIX looking bullish, that's a signal the market still is showing some weakness. When we open, we'll see if buyers defend us temporarily, but then there's going to be a risk of us continuing to fall, especially even after this data comes out. We do have the Chicago PMI at 945, so look for some volatility then. But despite that, like I said before, there still is that risk of downside for the markets. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a good rest of your day. I'll be back in just a couple of hours for another update. So thank you and peace out.